Okay, and the meeting is beginning to get recorded here. Good morning. My name is Marcelo Santos. I'm calling you from St. Paul, Minnesota this morning. This audience today is Neiman Marcus. We're actually the topic for today will be Tracer ES scheduling training for a duration of about an hour. We're starting at a little bit after 10 a.m. Central Time, which would be 8 a.m. Pacific Time. And the reason we're here is to give you the skills and confidence to work with the scheduling and the equipment at your stores using Tracer ES scheduling. As you can see, you all should have the Tracer ES schedules PowerPoint presentation we're going to go through quickly here, followed by a quick session into a Tracer ES live site simulation that we have on the side. Yeah, my slides just went a little crazy. Okay, the module overview here is we're actually going to look and discuss the Tracer Summit schedule overview, importing existing schedule, creating new schedules, modify existing schedule, creating an exception schedule, and creating an exception template schedule. Tracer Summit schedule, as you can see here, is a little bit different. For those of you who have the building control unit panel on the walls, this typically would be the schedule that you would be using if you are familiar with Tracer Summit software. Now, Tracer ES software is the software that it's server-based that is kind of replacing the traditional Tracer Summit schedule that you see splash screen as you see in front of you here. What is a schedule? Well, for those of you who are unfamiliar with schedule is a set of events or instructions that tells the HVAC, that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment, connected what to do and when to do it. For example, an event in a schedule tells the rooftop unit when to turn on and when to turn off. When you display a schedule on the schedule is when you see all the events that are scheduled for a particular day. The time of day schedules enables you to create and modify a schedule that control the equipment for HVAC and sometimes maybe in your store, maybe even lighting. Using the schedule application, you can schedule equipment to start and stop at specific times during the day. You can use optimal start-stop times to turn the equipment on as late as possible and turn it off as early as possible. A schedule is a set of defined events that applies to effective period of time for one or more of the following members. And as you can see there, we have areas, ECM, control points, and save values. The Tracer Summit schedule member event types, as you see on the top of the list, they are normal binary object and area. Typically about 90% of the scheduling that most facilities will be using. We also have other options as well, including analog objects on the bottom of the list, and in between we have other functions that we can use, like optimal, economizing, lighting, member types, and they function a little bit different. The daily events, these types of events occur every day unless you override them with a holiday or an exception. Now, these are treated differently. If you can visualize a normal schedule, schedules that happen daily, every day, they're repetitive in nature. But every once in a while, you have to go in and put in an exception for something that typically is not predictable. In that case, you have to, for example, create a special function for a day that typically the store or your store might not be open or might not be occupying. In that case, you have to go in and create an exception that will give you an additional occupied time for that period of time that is not necessarily predictable. Holidays are also something that you have to take into account. For example, the holidays that we have here in the United States may be different from a store maybe in another country, or maybe even state to state may have different holidays. Now, holidays take precedent over regular schedule, but exceptions will take precedent over holidays. For example, a regular schedule day may for let's say Christmas Day occurring during the weekday might have the store go unoccupied. A holiday would take over and take control over a regular day, even though the schedule might be scheduled to be occupied during a Monday. But if a holiday falls on that day, the holiday will take precedent over a regular day by keeping the store unoccupied for that day. Now, if a store owner decides to throw, like, for example, a party during that day, he can create an exception, and the exception overrules a holiday. So typically the exceptions will take precedent over a holiday, and the holiday will take precedent over a regular scheduled day. Holidays are shown in blue, exceptions are shown in yellow, as you see on the presentation, the PowerPoint in front of you now.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Why does this look like, is this for Summit or is this for ES?
It's typically depending on what your store has on the wall. It might be building control units, and that's for Summit. Tracer Summit is the software that we use to interact with the BCUs. Now, Tracer ES is a software that's on the servers that allows you to have access to the BCU on the wall. But that BCU on the wall was originally configured with Tracer Summit.
Marcelo?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, all of our engineers are using the Tracer ES.
Correct.
Yeah, so if you can focus more on that, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, typically what happens is the BCUs on the wall, the schedules there are imported with Tracer ES. So I kind of need to lay the foundation on how it's shown on Tracer ES side, because there are some differences. And that's where we're going with this. So just a little minor background. On the Tracer Summit side, we have the different options as normal, optimal, night economized lighting, and set analog as options for the schedules. Now, two of those remain the same on the Tracer ES scheduling side. However, some of those scheduling options are now on the Tracer ES are called a different name. As you can see here, lighting is still the same, and set analog is still the same. However, the normal, auto, and night economize schedules are combined under the heading of HVAC on the Tracer ES side. Lighting and set analog remain the same. Now, as you go in to create a schedule in Tracer ES, once you have your buildings discovered on a tree, as you see an example here, we have the biochemistry building option. We select the building, and then once we select the building, we have the left-hand navigation that you see in front of you here. Can you see my cursor? Can you guys see my cursors out there? Anybody respond?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the left-hand navigation here, and we see schedules highlighted. To create a schedule, you just select schedule on the left-hand navigation, that part of the menu. And again, you're going to see, as we had three options before in Tracer Summit, now we have only the normal option. In this case here, we can create a normal schedule. We can create an exception, a template, and at the very top we have the normal, exception, and exception template options for the various areas in the building that we chose, which was the biochemistry building. To create a new schedule, you click on the Create New Schedule button over on the right-hand side, as you see on the highlighted options underneath my cursor. Creating a new schedule, the process is fairly simple. The main thing that you need to keep in mind is that you need to create a name for the schedule that's very descriptive, because you need to make sure whoever follows you at the store that you're at knows exactly what area the schedule is supposed to control. 99% of the time, as I mentioned before, you're going to be using the HVAC schedule. That incorporates those three different options that we saw in the Tracer Summit. Okay? The set analog option is for setting a temperature, set point of the schedule, and lighting is for internal lighting. So 99% of the time, the select schedule type is going to be HVAC, as you see there, number 2. Number 3, you're going to specify the effective period, starting the day, and it could be open-ended, or you can have the effective period truncated with an end date. And then you're going to assign members. Typically, you're going to assign area as a member, and area will have all its members cascading down on the schedule itself. Now, you can assign individual members, and when I say members, I mean individual pieces of equipment, but it is best to assign an area which has its own members underneath. And then you're going to set the events. The event will be the link days, like Monday to Friday, and then you have to enter a value and a time. So 8 a.m. occupying, 5 p.m. unoccupying. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to move on. Exception schedules. Exceptions, as I mentioned before, a little bit different. Exceptions typically will take precedent over anything that's on the schedule, including and up to holidays. So exceptions typically sit at the very top. They have the highest priority. So if you have a regular scheduled day where the store is normally supposed to be occupied, you go in, create a holiday, unoccupy the store, and then later on decide to throw a party, you throw a party by creating an exception schedule. And the exception schedule rules over a holiday and over an HVAC schedule type. It allows you to make one-time schedule change, like in this case here, an unscheduled basketball game, if you have an event of that type, or if you have in a store an all-night inventory. It only affects the selected schedule. So if you have an exception, you need to apply to various schedules. You need to make sure you appropriately apply that to if you have more than one schedule at your store. For example, if you have a schedule separate for the sales area and another one different for the warehouse, you want to make sure the exception takes place with members of both of those schedules. Then you need to make sure you apply that exception to both schedules. Again, the exceptions are a little bit tricky because they're a one-time event. We need to make sure that only the user with the appropriate access can use exceptions. To create an exception, typically you go to schedules, and instead of creating a normal schedule, this time you pick exception, and then you're given the option to create a new exception schedule, as you see on the top. Again, name the exception by a name that's easy to understand and very distinguishable, so that anyone that comes in and open up the schedule will know what the exception is for. So be very descriptive in your naming convention. Here, in this case, we're going to name the schedule, select the event type again, option 2 there, HVAC, is the one that you're going to use most of the time, unless you have lighting as members of your schedule. You're going to select the effective schedule and then the effective dates. And then you're going to set the events. If it's going to be linked days, and then you're going to enter the value and time. In this case, occupy 8 a.m., unoccupy 2 p.m. Now I'm moving on to the next topic, and I'm going to take time here just to see if there's any questions so far before I move on. Any questions? Okay, I'm moving on. Exception templates, a little bit different, but as the name implies, instead of making an active exception and applying it to a schedule, in this case here, we're going to simply create a template where we're going to define an exception that will not necessarily take place immediately, but will be held in a holding pattern, if you will, where we can apply it at any time that we may wish. Now, this may be a predictable event that doesn't necessarily, that is not necessarily happening right away. In this case, for example, a snow day or a hurricane day or a parent-teachers conference. Now, you may get notification from a higher authority that to apply this type of a template, and that may be within a 24-hour period, in which case you have the template already saved, and then no dates assigned to it, and all you have to do is apply the template to the particular day when indicated to do so. In this case, the particular event has been predicted to have the possibility of occurring, but not necessarily do you apply that exception until you're notified to do so by a higher authority. And again, it's only available used over the appropriate access. To create an exception template, in this case right here, we're looking at the left-hand navigation tree, and we're going to look under Schedules. After we open Schedules, it's going to be the third option, Templates. Once we open Templates, we are given the option to create a new template. Any templates you already have created will be shown on the pane underneath here under the list. We select the Create New Exception Template. Again, we give it a descriptive name. We select the event type. In most cases, it's going to be an HVAC type event. And we set the events, enter the value and time. Once we do that, then we can apply the template, or we have two buttons on the right here where we can delete templates or apply templates accordingly. Now, before I move on to the next slide, I'm going to ask to see if there's any questions before I move on to the actual demonstration portion of this webinar. Are there any questions out there, gentlemen? Don't be shy. All right, I'm going to move on. I'm actually going to switch screens here momentarily. Just hang in there. The screen goes blank. It's not off the air. It's just a temporary event here. And now I'm going to actually share with you my tracer.
I got a question for you.
Screen.
Can I print this out while we're talking through it and make notes on it?
Sure, absolutely. Do you want me to share that with you, or what are you looking at?
Just so I have something to make notes on.
Sure.
And if I was able to print this out, it'd be easier.
So, yeah, I'd appreciate an emailed copy of the PowerPoint.
Okay, email or PowerPoint. We'll do that. Is there someone that can I can kind of send the email to, and they will be responsible for forwarding it to everybody else? Right now I have 27 attendees, and I don't think I have the means here to email everybody. Would anybody care to kind of be the one?
Do we have an option to be able to print the screen that we see?
At your site, I don't know.
Yeah, you could use you can take down my email address and send it to me, and I'll forward it on to anyone who asks.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that, please.
Ed_Carvalho. It's ED_CARVALHO at NeimanMarcus.com.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ed. We'll make sure we'll follow up with that. Hang in there. I'm actually logging in. Do you all see the Train Tracer ES main screen here showing all buildings and White Bear Lake as one of the sub-options? I need to make sure everybody is on board here. If you don't see it, let me know before we proceed on. All right, great. Now, under White Bear Lake, which is the actual city where I'm at, which is a subdivision here or a neighborhood in St. Paul, where train's located, we have two systems here on the desk connected to a server. One of them is the Train College or Building Automation. That's what that acronym is. And it's connected to a building control unit, which is our legacy site supervisor panel, if you will. And then next to it, you have a Train College or Building Automation again. Now this time we have what we call the next generation controller or supervisory panel called an SC, a system controller. I'm going to click on one of those just to open up a database that we have. Now, this is not actual equipment, folks. What we're looking here is actually simulations running inside of a building control unit. So some of the values that we get through here are actually not real, but just static, and it for the purpose of this demonstration, this will actually work good for us. I'm going to be clicking on the left-hand navigation here for the, if you look at the top, we're looking at a TCBA BCU. And currently there are some schedules that exist. One is made by a gentleman by the name of Aaron. The resultant schedule that he created here, it looks like it's an 8 a.m. event and a 5 p.m. Unoccupied, 8 a.m. occupied event. And we have an optimal stop at 4:30, and I get this information by actually putting the cursor over the hatch mark next to the 5 p.m. unoccupied event occurrence, and then by moving my cursor over to the 8 a.m. event for occupied, I can see that there's an optimal start where the equipment is allowed to start a half an hour early, anytime between 7:30 and 8, so that the set points are met at 8 a.m. for the equipment. Now, under normal exceptions and exception templates, the three items that we just reviewed in the PowerPoints, they're underneath schedules here on the left-hand side. The first one that we can actually look at, right now we're looking at the schedules. We can actually click on normal here. And there are some schedules that have been created already. Now I can select these schedules and actually hit delete to make them go away, or I can click on create new schedule, define a schedule name, TCBA class schedule. My panel in choice here is that BCU. It's a BCU. The type of panel is a BMTX panel. That's just the latest version of the building control unit panel that we have on the wall, or in this case here connected to the server. The schedule type is the HVAC schedule, but again I have the options of creating a lighting schedule or a set analog schedule as well. If we want to pick the strategies for optimal stop window, as you saw earlier in the example that I showed you, allowing the equipment to start at an earlier time period, we can define a window for the equipment to start before 8 a.m. Or if we want, if we're leaving an area where night economizing, it's possible where we can actually bring in outside air and lock out mechanical air in order to bring that fresh air during unoccupied time. We choose that night economize feature. When do we want this schedule to start taking place? We can click here on the actual calendar and make a selection. And if we want to truncate that date, we actually can click on the schedule there and then pick a date. Otherwise, if we leave open, the schedules will go on starting starting April 16, will go on forever. Once we make the selections, we select the next button. Now, we have to go in and decide what it is that we want to add, what members are available for us to add to the schedule. In best world, the best thing to do would be to actually create areas and bring in the areas, which would in turn will bring all the members that are listed here on these items. Well, I don't see any, so right now I'm just going to go in and pick some of these items. I'm just going to pick this one right here. And this one, add, select those, hit next. And then I have to pick the optimal start and stop time in the morning. So I'm occupying at 8. I'm going to allow the 60 minutes for the equipment to start. So I'm going to give it a window of 60 minutes before 8 o'clock, so the equipment will decide when it's best to turn on, so that set point is met by 8 a.m. And then I'm going to give 30 minutes for the stop time. I'm going to select every day of the week instead of just Monday to Friday. And that looks good. There it is. Now I'm going to take a look in here, make sure that that's what I want. Right here is the 30-minute window underneath, and that's for 7 days a week. And I have my 60-minute for the entire week. Now, if I'm not satisfied with that 60-minute, I can go in and change that to 90 and make that change. Okay, and now the change has taken place, and now instead of being an hour before 8 a.m., now it's an hour and a half, looking at 90 minutes. So the equipment is allowed to turn on at 6:30, anytime between 6:30 and 8 a.m. I'm going to hit next. There it is. I have my schedule, the name of the schedule, TCBA class schedule. It's going to be CU1. It's an HVAC type schedule, which the features enable for optimal start stop and night economize. And the affected members are listed under the schedule members you see here on the list. And then I simply click finish, and my schedule is done. Going back on the breadcrumb trail you see on the top here, I don't use my back button on the browser, but actually use the breadcrumb trail. I can go backwards and actually see, and there's my schedule here on the TCBA class schedule. I can select it and actually see my daily schedule for the day. I can click on the next day to see what tomorrow is supposed to be scheduled if I need different in the day. Again, I'm going to see these horizontal bars. Now, if I want to see the weekly schedule, the weekly schedule is not shown, so I can actually go in at some future date and see that way. and actually change the date for April 26th. I can edit members by adding more members if I have more equipment that I want to be part of this particular schedule or different areas. Or I can go back and change attributes, or go back and edit any other information that I seen fit, including deselecting some of the features that I chose earlier. Any questions so far, gentlemen? Are we all up there? Okay, a lot of silence. I'm going to move on. Now, going back to the managed building schedules, there's the schedule that I made. This is the actual schedule added. Now, if I can show you here the next two items, the one schedule options here that we're going to explore now is the actual exception. In this case right here, we're going to create an exception schedule here. We'll call it party for the office exception. And we're going to add the the TCBA class schedule as our option here. I'm going to select next. And in this case right here, I can actually go in and create a date range. So I'm actually going to pick Thursday. And we're going to end Thursday, so a one-day event. Only days in the exception, all days in the date range. I can pick what the exception applies to, only the days that contain the exception events, or all days in the event range. In this case right here, we're going to occupy at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. It takes a few seconds here.
What if you wanted to run past midnight?
Any event past midnight, and it's considered a next day at 12:01. So in that case, it will be treated as the next day. You'd have to create an exception for the next day. It's a good question, though. And then I'm going to finish. And let's see if that took. So right here we have the party for the exception, HVAC. Let's go take a look at our normal schedule and see if that got put in there. And that was, if I believe I did it for Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And there's my exception. I thought I changed the date though. It was 8 a.m. to 5, exception, and I must have screwed up on the times, but that was supposed to show here the time from 5, I believe it was 5 to 10 p.m., wasn't it? Let's see here, something happened. I thought I changed this. See a weekly view here to see if I can see it better. Yeah, I think I put in the wrong times. But basically you can see how different the exception looks. Basically get an outline around the particular date that you make the exception for, and it looks different from all the other events. In this case right here, we had all the other events starting at 6:30 for the optimal start and then the going occupy at 8 a.m. and then the optimal stop at 4:30 and the unoccupied at 5 p.m. For some reason when I click, I must have clacked here and my times didn't take correctly on the exception. Questions? I'm going to see if I can go in here and make a change on this exception date in here. Could have swore I changed it to. Okay. Okay, now that I'm going to put in just the start-stop time. In this case right here, I'm going to put at 5:00. And stop at 10. It's a little delay on my system here, folks.
Could you make an example of how you would do the stop time at 2 a.m. the next day?
Yeah. Let me put this at noon here then for Thursday. Some reason my number lock here is not working. There we go. Bear with me, gentlemen. Okay. Now I made this event for, actually it would be 5 p.m. And I'll put this at 11. I'll put it at 12. Why not? I'm going to add. And this is for Thursday. Yep. Okay. There we go. I'm going to save it. And let me go back to my schedule again. Then I'm going to look at the weekly. And there it is. So the 5 p.m. occupied until 12 at the bottom of the page here. Now, to make sure that the event carries over until Friday, I'm going to have to create another exception, let's say between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. So in this case here, I'm going to create a new exception. This exception was called, party? So now I'm going to create another exception, party. I can't remember the name of it now, but so past midnight. Now again, this is going to be for Friday, so the 19th. So I picked those dates. This time I'm going to be a little bit more careful to take off the optimal stop and optimal stop event. And we're going to go, event's going to be occupied, and we're going to, unoccupied, sorry. The occupied is going to be actually at 12, and the unoccupied is going to be 2 a.m., folks?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is for Friday, sorry.
So you're actually shutting down the
take
unit
out
and the unit
on.
back on, or is it going to stay on?
It's going to stay on.
Okay.
And then once I hit next, this time I made sure I picked those other options, strategies off. I've got to go through and follow with the finish. And then I can go back to manage schedules, click on the TCBA schedule, and then look at the weekly view. This time I'm going to see now there's the purple outline to indicate that there is an exception that exists for those particular days. Any questions? Now,
Would it have
right
been
here,
easier to remove
sorry.
the occupied and add a stop?
Beg pardon?
Would it have been easier to remove, not even add, a stop time on, let me see on this, on Thursday? So where Thursday all you have is a 5 p.m. occupied and it runs, and then you put a unoccupied on Friday?
Yeah, typically if it's on BACnet systems, it's going to go on occupy at midnight unless you put in a default that keeps it occupied. But, you know, for schedule purposes, it's always best to put occupy and occupy events on a daily event. Just in case another person comes online, they will understand what's happening. If you leave it on. Go ahead, sorry.
You can use the same time, 12 a.m., 12 a.m.
Right.
Okay.
Because if another user comes on, they may not understand what's happening, and they may be inclined to want to fix it, if you will, and possibly even create a greater problem by just not understanding what the system is doing by not seeing that unoccupied event. So.
Okay. Thank
That
you.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What's left? The templates. If we go down schedules, we did normal. We did the exceptions. Now the next option will be the actual templates here. Now this is those events that we know will happen, but we can't predict when. So basically, in this case, you want to create an exception event, if you will, that you can apply it when notified by a higher authority to do so. So in this case right here, we're going to go in and click on template and then create new exception template. And we'll give it a name like, I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, so always what's most familiar to me, snow day template. In this case, some school authority will call the facility and tell them, hey, shut down the school. The facility manager will come in, take this template, and apply to a schedule and effectively shut down the equipment or turn on equipment, depending on what it is that the strategy is for the site. So in this case right here, I'm creating a template that shuts everything down. Sorry. And again, bear with me, my system is a little bit slower, so it takes a little bit of time to actually update. So I'm going to actually put it up here. Okay, so 8 a.m. unoccupied. I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to hit finish. Now I have this null date template that's available out there, and whenever I'm notified by some authority to go ahead and shut down the school by this unoccupied 8 a.m. event, I can go in and make a selection and apply, and then pick what schedule. In this case, the schedule I created earlier, I can add, and then go in, and then once I make the selection of that schedule, I can go in and apply it to whatever date it is that's in mind. In this case right here, I'm going to pick Monday, April the 29th. If I make a mistake, I can remove it. Otherwise, I hit next and then finished. Thusly now, I can go back to manage my schedules, go into the CBA's class schedule, look at my weekly view, see if we can see the 29th. So we'll pick next week since we can't see the 29th. And then there it is. We have the unoccupied event at 8 a.m. Again, we know that this is an exception by the purple outline along the date enclosing that particular day. In this case here was an exception template, again, that we can use for any time or any calendar date, if you will. Gentlemen, that concludes my demonstration unless you have any questions. I'm open for a question at this moment.
So that last template, you could actually just do a generic holiday one and apply that in December for Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter, correct?
Correct. Yeah. If you know ahead of time that those particular events are going to take place, and if you don't want to create a template the week of or the day of, you can do this ahead of time and then just name it in a way that's going to be easily recognizable by the user or any user so they can apply it in the future. But that's a good point.
Thank you.
Questions, gentlemen? All right, gentlemen, we're actually past the hour a little bit. We're going to conclude our presentation, and again, I invite you to come back 2 hours from now, or I'm going to make sure that I have my one to-do item here, which is to email Ed Carvalho at neimanmarcus.com, the PowerPoint presentation, so you can take notes, and unless there's any other questions, I'm going to close this session.
What were the times again tomorrow?
Tomorrow will be, we're looking at, let me see here. Looking for my glasses, gentlemen. For tomorrow, it will be 9 Central Time and 12 noon Central Time. So that's Minnesota time for you folks.
$10 a.m. You're 2 hours ahead of the West Coast, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so 10 a.m. tomorrow. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You still on there, Ed?